I logged into Twitter one day and saw a post where a bunch of people were calling me a tourist. Confused, I opened a search engine and typed the term anime tourist, which led me to a bunch of sites listing a bunch of places in Japan that were related to anime. Streets full of anime merchandise, amusement parks with rides based on popular series, museums full of manga, conventions full of anime fans, and even real-life locations that inspired scenes from certain series. Not knowing why these people wanted me to be a tourist, but not wanting to ignore the signs, I booked a ticket, packed my bags, brushed up on my Japanese, and left for Japan. Finding a place to start was the toughest part because all these people calling me a tourist online didn't actually have any places for me to go visit. So I had to do some research of my own. And this led me to the most memorable event I've ever attended, my very first anime event in Japan. Welcome anime friends, if you're new here, hi, my name is Phoenix. Today I'm going to be telling you the secret of how to become an anime tourist so you can please all the people on Twitter who keep calling you one. Before we begin though, there is one rule you must follow. Make sure to grab your cup because it's time to spill the anime tea. Well, before that, let me introduce you to my new desk. Anime friends, let's be honest. Does this photo resonate with you more than it should? Well, it's time to break that stigma, fix your posture, and stand up to the haters with FlexiSpot. FlexiSpot desks have the ability to memorize 3 programmable height settings for your sitting and standing needs. Stand up to work on your next movie-length monologue on why mecha anime is extremely underrated, or take a break and watch a cozy slice-of-life romance anime by simply programming your height setting for anime and chill. And because you often get caught up binging too much anime, it reminds you to stand up every once in a while so you don't lose circulation in your legs. Yelling at your screen is much easier while you're standing up anyway. You may worry that you have too much stuff on your desk for switching between standing and sitting, but FlexiSpot desks lift it all without a problem. With a dual motor life mechanism, this desk can hold up to 220 pounds. And the desk movement is so smooth, even Gojo doesn't budge. And never worry about keeping your devices charged with this handy USB charger. Check out the FlexiSpot Amazon Black Friday and Cyber Monday sale, which has up to 70% off. There are free orders on November 24th and 27th, and follow and watch FlexiSpot's live streams on Amazon to enter a desk giveaway. Use the link in the description or pinned comment to get your own FlexiSpot desk. Thanks again to FlexiSpot. Now back to the video. The Kyoto International Anime and Manga Fair happened to be the very first anime convention that I've ever attended in Japan. Besides it being conveniently located only an hour and a half from where I was staying in Japan, I was also interested in the event because of a message on their website stating that they wanted to encourage youth and foreign visitors to attend and prove that Kyoto was not only a place for history, but also modern entertainment. It somehow seemed fitting that in this city full of ancient temples, shrines, and Buddha statues the size of houses, that there would be a fair celebrating everything anime and manga. Across from the massive Heian Jingu Shrine, inside the Miyako Messe Convention Center, was a 2-storied exhibition hall dedicated to major publishing and licensing companies highlighting their best and newest anime series to come. Local businesses, universities, and smaller manga publishers showcasing their stuff on the first floor, endless merchandise booths of series both familiar and alien to me, and people, almost always on their own, watching presentations at exhibits and admiring cosplayers, hands full of bags of merch from their favorite series. I wandered around aimlessly and in awe as I noticed how different yet similar the convention was to American conventions I had attended. But the most important discovery in that anime fair happened to be the anime tourism booth that I stumbled upon, whose sole purpose was to promote anime tourism across Japan and to help young people and foreigners go on their own pilgrimages across the country to find the real-life inspirations of beloved scenes from anime, visit the hometown of famous creators and mangakas, and fully immerse themselves in the anime Japan experience. Leaving that fair feeling inspired and amazed by everything that I had seen and learned about Japanese conventions. Unfortunately, when I looked online, I would still see people calling me a tourist. And I knew I had to do more than just go to this anime fair. I had to find more anime tourism events and prove to these people that I was a real, true anime tourist. So I set off for another place, this time to explore the history of manga itself. As I headed to my next destination, I stumbled upon a shrine of anime characters who seemed to be guiding the way. Part of me wondered if the people on Twitter put them up to it. And soon I found myself in the most important historical location for manga, the Kyoto International Manga Museum. 3 stories of the most beloved, successful, and even hidden gem series from the big 3 of manga magazine publishing: shonen, shoujo, and seinen, along with the detailed layout of manga history displayed in a massive diagram nestled between ceiling-high shelves of the most recognizable manga and magazines of their respective generations. Though I stared at the massive collection of the Kyoto Manga Museum in awe, there is one thing that I remembered about museums that was pretty important. They often have a reputation for not touching the goods. But what made the Kyoto Manga Museum super special is that you were allowed to touch all of the manga there, and not only that, you were allowed to read it. There were dedicated reading spaces set up in front of manga shelves, set up on the side of some of the manga. People were even reading on the stairs leading up to different exhibits in the building, reading manga from all kinds of genres and demographics in one place. Knowing a little bit of hiragana might help you find some of your favorite mangaka that you might be searching for on the different floors of the manga museum, which is why I studied up a little bit on my Japanese, since it seemed like the right touristy thing to do. But even if you just want to walk around aimlessly and gaze at the bookshelves, you're sure to find something amazing. And for those who want to sit and enjoy and read the manga like everyone else is doing while you're there, there is actually a section on the first floor where you can read manga that has been translated to English, Japanese, Chinese, Korean, Spanish, French, and more. And there is even a small international section called Gaimon where you could read international manga written by people from all over the world. Though I could have literally stayed in the museum for days on end, I knew I had more exploring to do if I wanted to become a true anime tourist. Something that seemed to be at the top of every tourist list was the amusement parks. The first trip I took was to the Ghibli theme park. Stepping into the Ghibli Grand Warehouse felt like walking into a whimsical coming-of-age story. A little slice of life of multiple movie scenes and original locations designed by Ghibli, nestled inside of a massive building located within an equally massive park that you can easily get lost in if you are not careful, so be wary of that. Look for the giant, whimsical-looking tower and you'll find your way. But even in the massiveness that was the park, there was plenty of tiny little intricate details that made you feel like you were part of a Ghibli film. After pretending to be a Ghibli character for over an hour by posing in the various Ghibli scenes that were set up inside of the warehouse, I went on to the Hill of Youth, where I had my mind set on recreating the feeling of one of my favorite recent Ghibli movies, Whisperer of the Heart. I couldn't take many photos or video of this location because I was by myself and you're not allowed to use tripods, and most of the inside of the building you can't take any photos of, so I'll just say that it was beautiful. It literally felt like you were in the movie. Every little detail they had in the shop was replicated from parts of the movie. And I even sat on the back porch like the main character Shizuku did towards the end of the film. And it's one of my favorite moments from this trip that I truly cherish. But I knew my anime adventure would not be complete without visiting USJ. No, not this USJ. This one. Not too long before Halloween was underway, Universal Studios Japan was full of Halloween spirit. The park was alive with spooky Pokemon concerts, One Piece cosplayers, and of course, the Jujutsu Kaisen 4D ride, which was very cute and fun to ride, but not as exciting as I had originally anticipated. Still, it was worth it just to take a picture with the kids on this poster. I was also this close to getting into Super Nintendo World, but an emergency came up and I had to leave the park, and I could not return once I left, so I may be losing some tourism points for not going to Super Nintendo World. Despite that though, Universal Studios Japan is an experience that I would gladly do again, especially if they have more anime events, which they tend to do. I can talk about how fun it was to attend anime fairs, museums, and amusement parks in Japan all day long, but I noticed that there's a critically underrated part of anime tourism, a part that no one ever seems to talk about, not the people on Twitter who kept calling me a tourist, not the people online who bragged about their tourism experiences, not really anyone. Being exposed to real Japanese culture. I believe that anime fans can have a skewed perception of Japan as a whole because often their only interaction with it is through anime and manga. And I admit I've been duped in the past into thinking that anime and manga were direct reflections of how people in Japan, how Japan society could have actually worked. You know, for the most part, I thought that it was some kind of reflection of how Japanese people may have talked to each other, may have interacted with one another. But then a few years ago, I actually moved to Japan and lived there for 3 years. And my first time setting foot in Japan, I was overwhelmed with culture shock. Disoriented by the unfamiliar way of life, signs written in a language I couldn't understand, and ancient shrines dotting city landscape. It was a feeling that took me by surprise because I naively thought that I understood a little bit of Japanese culture based off of what I had seen in anime and manga, and I was deeply wrong. I was way off, actually. I actually worked and spoke with Japanese people, I attended cultural events, and I explored the country. And I realized nothing was like I thought it was going to be. For starters, the food was way better than anything I could possibly imagine, and nothing could prepare me for the amazingness, the true convenience of convenience stores. Like, why do they not hype this up more in anime? I don't really understand. It's incredible. Beyond that though, everything just seemed much more realistic. The people were way different from what we see in anime. You know, they just act like normal people who keep to themselves and are busy living their day-to-day lives. Who would have guessed? The landscape of the country was beautiful, but in a way that was different from what I had seen in anime and manga. Not everything was overly saturated in color and light in the same way, but it was beautiful in the way that it's simply a real place that exists that you can visit, and then the way that you can see how creators of manga and anime and art are inspired by it when making their own art. You come to realize that Japan is a real place full of culture, nature, shopping, food, and people. And of course its history, the amazing, the destructive, and the heartbreaking that defines it. All of these aspects inspired and continue to inspire artists who want to recreate and reimagine it through their own perspective. And anime gives us a glimpse of culture through the elaborate stories that these people tell. It doesn't matter if you've seen all 1,075 episodes of One Piece, because anime and manga are just pieces of art at the end of the day. And art alone isn't a substitute for learning about the storied history of a real country. Just like people in other countries idolizing America because of depictions that they see of actors in elaborate Hollywood movies. Hollywood isn't a reflection of how America actually is, and anime and manga is not a reflection of how Japan actually is. They're just mediums of art that people have created who take those experiences that they've lived in either country and put that into media. You learn much more about a place by living there, or even being there, even if it's just for a short amount of time, talking to real people from there, trying to understand the language, and being open-minded about food and more than you do claiming to know every fact that you looked up online about an anime or a manga. And over my years of making videos about anime and questions and things that I have about it, I've been trying really hard to not view all of Japan in the vacuum of anime and manga. To get personal, which I've been doing a lot lately in my videos, I've always struggled to fit into places. For not looking the way people around me look, for not talking the way or the people around me talk, and for not acting the way the people around me acted. I've always been a person that stands out when, for the most part of my life, I've always wanted to be a person who blended into the crowd. This even includes talking about anime on YouTube. I saw people on YouTube who were talking about anime, who were giving their opinions, who were dissecting things with passion, and I thought that I could get on here and do the same without any consequences. Honestly, it wasn't really even a big surprise that people on Twitter or even in the comment sections of some of my videos would say that I did not fit into this fandom, would say that my opinions didn't matter, and would get pretty vocal and angry about it, especially when my opinion about something didn't align with theirs. But even though I wasn't surprised, it didn't make me any less sad to see that even in a place where I thought I could just fit in and talk about anime, even in a place where I had made countless other good connections with people, I would still find myself othered by those who didn't like what I had to say about certain things. And despite it hurting my pride and my many years of watching and talking about anime, honestly, I've had to come to terms with that it doesn't really have an effect on who I am as a person. Anime and manga are art, and I enjoy critiquing and dissecting them and tearing them apart to find out why they make me feel a certain way, to find out the history of their creation, to find out the questions that many people, including myself, have about certain series and where they came from. And I do it because it's fun to do so. It's fun to start discourse with people about the good, bad, and in between that exists in the medium. It's fun to attend conventions and debate with fans over their favorite series. And it's fun to travel to Japan and see how and why it inspired such a creative and insane medium that fans the world over enjoy. So yeah, I became an anime tourist, and I encourage other people to do the same. Maybe not in the way that these people who've left these comments have in mind, but by actually getting out there and doing something new. Maybe making connections with people at conventions, maybe going to visit Japan itself, and seeing how this country inspired your favorite art. To those that encouraged me to become an anime tourist on Twitter, who probably didn't make it to this part of the video, I still want to talk to you. I know it's scary to have something you love be criticized or talked about, or like people have an opinion about it that might be different than yours. But I also think it's important to be open to what other people have to say about something and open your mind up to the real life that exists beyond the media, the fiction that you love. And I'm not only speaking to you when I say this, I am also speaking to myself, because sometimes I do get really caught up, even still, in the idea that, like, why does Japan see these things a certain way? Why does it seem okay for these certain things to exist in media when that's not exactly the case? I forget to look deeper and see that people as individuals are behind making a lot of these stories, especially when it comes to manga and light novels. They usually start off as 1 to 2 people teams before growing into like major companies and organizations that work on anime projects. When you look at it that way, you see that there's an individual approach to a lot of these stories that exists, but also comes from their experiences living in Japan. So it's a multi-layered thing that I even forget to look into. And I have to be mindful of when other people call me out for certain things that I say, and try to work on getting better at criticizing things without seeming like my opinion is the only one that matters. And that should go both ways. Maybe I made it seem like the opinions that I had in my romance anime tropes that need to go video were the only ones that mattered. Or maybe I was a little too critical in my Made in Abyss video of the creator. But no matter what you think of my opinions of certain things, just remember that at the end of the day, I am just exploring these ideas out loud. Yeah, I'm just talking about things that interest me and trying to unravel how they make me feel, what they make me think. And during research, I'm learning about things that I didn't know about before. I'm just here to remind you and me that even though we think we understand something because we enjoy it, we don't really truly understand anything until we've at least given ourselves the opportunity to look at things critically and to really think about how something makes us feel. Maybe even experience some culture shock of our own so that we can get a different perspective of how we view things. Traveling to Japan may be every diehard anime fan's dream, but when we get there, we realize that Japan is a place with people and society and rules like anywhere else in the world, and it doesn't exist in a bubble of fiction that we're used to seeing it through. Yes, it's beautiful and very much worthy of exploring respectfully, but we also should realize that this society that you hold in such high regard for the art that it produces is just another country with normal people, and these normal people will not praise you for watching anime. Some may even secretly diminish your existence to just another foreigner visiting their land. And once you are aware of that, you may actually realize that you're as much of a tourist as the people you judge online. I hope this video didn't come off too preachy or weird. I was trying to kind of cope with this whole concept of people kind of judging me online and calling me a tourist, but also kind of flip it in a fun way, because I actually did go to Japan and I went to a lot of anime events, and I thought it would be a perfect mix of both of them in a way to cope with this term that people are calling me by having fun and making this video. I literally looked up the term anime tourist, and the first thing that comes up is literally anime tourism in Japan. It's like so hilarious. I don't know why that is the term that some people chose to go with, but you might want to find a better term. My opinions about anime and manga are not the end all be all, and I don't want them to be, and I don't want people to think that they are. I just like poking fun and asking questions and being critical about stuff that I watch, because it helps me cope with living day to day, and it's a good distraction. For those who want to get into like true tourism, like actual tourism, like the truest sense of the word, the literal definition of tourism, just remember that to be respectful of other cultures when you're visiting places, be respectful of the lands that you're visiting, try to learn a bit of history, just be respectful of places that you want to go to, and learning about like the actual culture of a place will always help you understanding not only anime and manga, which is fun, but also just real people in real life. And it also expands your own experiences with the world. But also remember to never diminish your opinions about something for people who are going to judge you online anyway. It's not worth it. Anywho, I'm gonna have another video about Japan coming out pretty soon. Before getting back to my regularly scheduled anime programming. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I encourage everyone to experience like true tourism, but also be respectful of the people and the places that you go. And yeah, I'll see you next time. Peace.